After I began dating Jack, the school's notorious bad boy, his former sweetheart made a dramatic return in front of everyone. She tore my skirt, and Jack immediately wrapped his jacket around me, his voice cold as ice. "She's my girlfriend. If you dare to mess with her, be prepared for the consequences." Yet later, when a car came speeding toward us, he pushed her out of the way first. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the year when he was fervently pursuing me. The entire school knew that Jack, the bully, was smitten with me, Linda, the school belle. For my sake, he quit smoking, gave up drinking, stopped fighting, and offered me anything he thought I would like. Despite being at the bottom academically, he chased after me and, in his senior year, got into a top university. He was arrogant and dismissive toward others, yet he proudly boasted to his friends, "Linda is just so beautiful." But it wasn't until after I died once that I realized all his kindness toward me was because of someone else, someone who looked just like me. "Jack scored again!" someone shouted. "He's so hot, I might get a nosebleed." Jack had just made a three-pointer, igniting loud cheers from the crowd. Everyone stood up, applauding. He waved off girls offering him towels, glanced into the audience, and then ran over. As he moved, the cheers intensified. Behind me, I heard a soft laugh. "Nina, your sweetheart is something else. Not only is he handsome, but those abs deserve a perfect score," a girl said confidently and proudly. "Of course," another voice replied. "I've liked him since we were kids." That voice was all too familiar. It was Nina, Jack's childhood sweetheart. In my previous life, I hadn't known who the voice belonged to. Now I desperately wanted to ask Jack, under the gaze of thousands, "Who are you running toward?" Lost in thought, a shadow suddenly loomed over me. I looked up to see Jack's smiling face. He handed me a bottle of juice, his grin radiant. "From the basketball team. I specifically told them to get the brand you like." Before I could react, the people around us erupted. "I can't handle this. I'm going to faint. This is too sweet. Jack looks even more handsome up close. Those model-like features. I'm dying." Jack seemed pleased, thinking his recent gestures had moved me. However, I didn't reach out to take the juice. I glanced at him briefly, then looked away. The surrounding noise gradually died down, and Jack froze momentarily. He awkwardly asked, "If I win this game, can I treat you to lunch to celebrate?" "Sorry, I'm busy. I have to go." I grabbed my bag and headed down the stairs. Jack hurried after me, but then Nina called out, "Jack, it's me. I'm back from abroad." Surprised, Jack didn't respond and continued following me down the bleachers. "Linda, what's wrong today? Can you at least talk to me? Please don't ignore me." He could have blocked my way, but instead trailed behind like a shadow. Without even looking back, I could sense the panic on his face. Before we continue with the story, I want to ask for a favor. It's been my childhood dream to reach 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if you could help make that dream come true by subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much. And now back to the video. "Is this amusing to you?" I said with a hint of sarcasm. "Now that the original is back, what's the point of keeping me, the stand-in, just to make her jealous? To get back at her for leaving you? Linda, did I do something to upset you? You can hit me, yell at me, vent however you want. I'm right here. You can hit me as much as you like." I was almost out the gym door when I heard Jack's plea and stopped. "Hit you all I want?" I looked at him and began to laugh. Jack seemed entranced by my gaze. He stared into my eyes and nodded. "Yes, hit me all you want." "All right." In the next moment, I slapped him hard. His pale face quickly turned red where I struck him. He was stunned. His head turned from the impact. He looked at me in disbelief. His eyes filled with hurt. "Does it hurt?" But this pain is nothing compared to how I felt when I was hit by that car. It's nothing compared to the pain in my heart when I saw you instinctively choose her. You were the one who pursued me first. Why did everything change so suddenly? Your fleeting whims destroyed me, making me fall deeper and ultimately costing me my life. "Jack!" Nina rushed out and saw what happened. "You witch! What gives you the right to hit him?" She charged at me, furious, ready to slap me. But before her hand could reach me, Jack grabbed her wrist. "No one has the right to touch her," he said. In that moment, he seemed like the arrogant and domineering boy he once was. Coldly shaking off Nina's hand, He used so much force that Nina nearly fell. She stumbled a few steps, steadied herself, and shouted, "Jack, are you crazy? She just hit you. I was standing up for you." "And I wanted her to," he said seriously, touching the spot where I'd slapped him. I suddenly recalled that a few days ago, Jack had led a fight against some troublemakers from another school who had tried to harass me. He probably got a scrape in that very spot back then. Looks like I just added insult to injury. "Linda, I'm serious." I had no interest in his act. I scoffed and turned away. When I got home that day, I blocked all contact with Jack. Reflecting carefully, I realized there had been signs. Ever since Nina returned, Jack hadn't been as passionate or persistent in pursuing me. I thought it was just natural changes after we got together. Now it seems his heart was leaning toward Nina. It makes sense. Since coming back, Nina had been relentlessly messaging and pestering him. He seemed outwardly annoyed, but if he truly disliked her, why hadn't he deleted her? If he wasn't interested, why did he casually wish her happy birthday after gaming till midnight on her birthday? During the long holiday, I stayed at my aunt's place to avoid him. My roommate told me that during this time, rumors about us were rampant on campus. Everyone knew I had publicly rejected Jack and even slapped him. I was already aware of this. The top post on the campus forum was, "Linda doesn't know her place, publicly assaults Jack." Comments flooded in, questioning how I could treat him that way when he was so good to me. They said I should have been bullied by those thugs. But thankfully Jack went out late at night to fight for me. So what if she's pretty? She's ice cold. Poor Jack's such a nice guy, but he fell for someone like her. Suddenly, countless people were criticizing me, mostly girls who admired Jack. But soon, all those posts mysteriously disappeared. When the holiday ended, I thought enough time had passed for him to reconcile with Nina. But to my surprise, when I returned to the dorm early in the morning, I saw Jack squatting by the bushes, drawing circles on the ground, cigarette butts scattered around him. Had he waited all night? The sound of my suitcase wheels startled him. He looked up sharply, his once clear eyes now bloodshot. He trembled slightly, his messy black hair shifting. Then, remembering I hated the smell of smoke, he hurriedly began sweeping away the cigarette butts with his hands. I ignored him and pulled my suitcase toward the stairs. He stumbled after me, looking more pathetic than I'd ever seen. "Linda." His voice was so hoarse it startled me. Jack tried to grab my arm, but, seeing his dirty hands, quickly hid them behind his back. "Why did you block me everywhere?" His eyes were red, but he couldn't meet mine. "Do I need to inform you when I block you?" "No." He shook his head quickly, whispering, "I remember you liked a dress once. My friend told me it's back in stock. I bought it for you. They also released new designs, and I got those too." "Jack, I don't want your things," I said calmly. "Let's make this clear now. I don't like you. You're just fascinated by me. Stop doing these things. People will misunderstand." "No, Linda, I really like you. I truly do." But no matter what he said, I wouldn't believe him. What could be more telling than your instinctive reaction in a life-and-death situation? Everything he said afterward faded into the background. Feeling dizzy, I returned to the dorm. My roommates comforted me as soon as they saw me. Regardless of the rumors outside, they always stood by me and trusted me. They didn't ask about Jack. Instead, they prepared snacks, fruits, and warm water sitting with me. "Just let us know if you need anything. We're always here. If anyone dares to bully Linda, I'll punch them." "Yeah, Linda, if you're feeling down, just call us anytime. We're here." Their words nearly brought me to tears. They always provided endless understanding and support. No matter how tough things were outside, returning here felt like coming home. There was another reason I returned early this time. Tomorrow was the school's anniversary celebration, and as the host, I had rehearsed many times before the holiday. I had to be there for the official performance. In my previous life, it was during this very event that Nina publicly tore my dress apart. This time, I wouldn't wait for Jack's insincere rescue. Jack, Nina, everyone who had bullied me, I would make them pay. The next day, while preparing backstage, I suddenly heard a commotion in the auditorium. My co-host went to check it out and came back excitedly. "Jack looks especially handsome today and brought a big bouquet." But my eyes went past him, landing on Nina a few meters away, her eyes filled with malice. I knew today would be a reenactment of my past life's ordeal. Back then, amidst the cheers and applause as I stepped on stage, Nina had appeared and shattered all my happiness. In front of the live camera, she tore my dress apart, leaving me defenseless and exposed. Though Jack rushed to cover me with his jacket, the bone-chilling humiliation carved an indelible mark on my heart. Jack's voice had been icy. "She's my girlfriend. If you dare touch her, you'll pay the price." Yet the person who started it all got off scot-free. For a long time after, I had nightmares, crying whenever I thought about it. The forums were filled with my photos and rumors, while the culprit received nothing more than a mild scolding from teachers. She continued her reckless ways, even sending me taunting messages late at night. "Linda, what's wrong?" A clear yet slightly cold voice snapped me back to reality. I looked up to see a strikingly handsome young man watching me. I recognized him. It was Felix, the main organizer of the event and the student council president. I heard he's the son of a high-ranking official, low-key and reserved, completely different from the wealthy and brash Jack. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking," I said, collecting myself and offering a faint smile. Felix stared at me for a few more seconds, then nodded slightly and walked off to continue his work. As soon as he left, a girl from our department rushed over. "Wasn't that Felix? He actually asked about you. I've never seen him initiate a conversation before." Seeing her eyes light up and her voice growing louder, I quickly covered her mouth. "Keep it down. He's so outstanding. Don't overthink it." She kept raising her eyebrows at me, her curiosity piqued. "I don't believe you. You guys are all about looks. Maybe Felix has taken a liking to you? Wait and see. I'll help you test the waters." No sooner had she finished talking than she suddenly shouted, "What? Linda wants to eat ice cream?" Her voice wasn't overly loud in the noisy backstage, but it was noticeable. I didn't have time to cover her mouth and shook my head frantically. Luckily, everyone around was busy and just glanced up with a smile. Felix also looked over at me briefly. "Just watch. If a guy likes you, even the smallest thing you do will matter to him," another girl said, patting my arm earnestly. I shrugged. "Well, you're going to be disappointed. He's so busy, and girls like him a lot. It's not like he'd notice a junior like me." But then, 15 minutes later, Felix, who had gone out at some point, came back with another guy carrying a box of ice cream for the backstage crew. Sweat glistened faintly on his handsome brow. I remembered it took at least 20 minutes to walk one way from the venue to the nearest supermarket. "Come on, everyone! Felix is treating us to ice cream. Take your pick!" Everyone screamed and cheered, running over. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it seemed like Felix looked at me specifically. I didn't have much of an impression of Felix before. Our interactions were limited to work. Coincidentally, I was always on the same team as him. Every time we divided tasks, I actually liked it, because if he was on the team, I didn't have to worry. He always took care of everything excellently, offering me lots of learning opportunities. As I ate my ice cream, I thought maybe this senior really looked after his juniors well. But liking me? No way. He was always surrounded by campus beauties and had no shortage of admirers. There was no way he'd be interested in someone like me. Soon the audience filled the venue and the school anniversary performance officially began. Just like before, my partner and I walked out from backstage, greeted by cheers and camera flashes. As the spotlights focused on us, for some reason, I glanced to the side. In the shadow of the lights, Felix stood there quietly, holding up a camera toward me. My heart suddenly started beating faster. A bubble blown by a fan burst against my face, and I followed the planned route to interact with the audience. The next second, a lurking figure shot out from between the seats. My dress's neckline was already wide and extended to both sides, and the fabric was thin. If she used enough force, she could tear it wide open. But Nina miscalculated. She thought I would keep walking, but I stopped just short of her. A commotion erupted in the audience. I had warned my roommates that Nina might try something. Seeing this, they angrily pushed Nina away under the cover of the crowd. Nina failed to land her blow and instead hit the stage hard, her forehead immediately reddening, nearly exposing herself in the process. Girls around started screaming. Felix quickly brought some guys over and dragged Nina away. As he passed by me, he whispered, "Don't worry, just keep hosting. I've got this." I nodded and quickly regained my composure, taking control of the situation as a host should. Jack observed everything from the side, his dark eyes holding a complexity I couldn't decode. He placed down the flowers he was holding and seemed to want to follow Felix out, but ultimately sat back down. A while later, when I looked at him again, his head was bowed, and the large bouquet lay on the ground beside him. He must have never guessed that his sweet, proud sweetheart could do such a thing, so embarrassing and pathetic. But it didn't matter. He would forgive her, just like before. Even if he took off his jacket to cover me, he would only give a warning and do nothing else. My pain was all seen by him. He would sympathize with me, but couldn't do anything to Nina. She was his first love, the one who held a special place in his heart. Anyone else would just be secondary. Turning back to the stage, I closed my eyes tightly. The last event of the anniversary was a masquerade ball. Last time I didn't participate and cried endlessly back in my dorm. If Nina hadn't shown up, maybe I would have danced with Jack. But now, as I watched Jack absent-mindedly put on his mask, I felt no desire to dance with him. Classmates joyfully rushed onto the stage, nervously searching for their partners. I put on a rabbit mask, planning to slip away in the chaos. Just when I thought no one would recognize me and I could sneak off, a figure in a wolf mask walked through the crowd toward me. In the vast, bustling hall, he headed straight for me, almost as if by magic. I froze in place. I watched his lips curve into a smile as he declined invitations from other girls and bowed before me. "Miss Bunny, may I have this dance?" he asked, bending gracefully and extending his hand. His voice, usually cold and aloof, had a hint of barely noticeable nervousness. There were so many people around, but my vision blurred except for him. His fingers were long and soft, with a small mole on his right thumb. As we danced, I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. His slightly upturned lips and deep, clear eyes, usually distant, now looked at me warmly, almost flirtatiously. Most importantly, no one had ever made me feel this way before, as if he only belonged to me. In the vast sea of humanity, to him, I was the most special, and he was solely mine. Wolves are known to be faithful animals, choosing one mate for life. When one dies, the other leaves the pack and lives alone until death. A surreal image flashed in my mind. In my past life, after I died in a car accident, a young man went racing on that same mountain road and drove off a cliff. He had a mole on his right thumb. Despite the little hiccup at the start, the school anniversary event was a great success overall. The teacher was deeply moved, saying she witnessed the spirit and energy of youth, which reminded her of her own younger days. She particularly praised my hosting skills, noting my calmness under pressure and excellent control of the situation. Felix suggested we all go out to eat. Everyone was invited. It was like a celebratory feast. After that dance, our relationship had clearly become closer. At this moment, he almost only looked at me when speaking, waiting for my response. I smiled. "Sure, Felix, that would be great." Surprisingly, Jack also wanted to join. In this kind of setting, he seemed a bit hostile toward Felix, but Felix didn't mind. When we got out of the venue, Jack was waiting nearby, driving his extravagant sports car. The window rolled down, revealing his face with sunglasses, causing several girls to scream. He looked toward me as if wanting to speak but held his tongue. I ignored him. We were at a standstill until a Bugatti pulled up. I instantly spotted the driver. "Felix, give me a ride!" I shouted, running over on purpose. As soon as Felix parked, I opened the back door, ready to get in. "Wait!" He tapped the steering wheel. "Sit in the front!" Holding back laughter, I agreed and obediently sat next to him. There was a bottle of water on the seat. Felix was always so thoughtful. Meanwhile, a few fellow student council members ran over to fill the back seat. Through the rearview mirror, they exchanged knowing smiles, but didn't make a fuss like others might. They even thoughtfully rolled up the windows a bit. With soft jazz music playing, we quickly reached the restaurant. Jack, always keen on speeding, had arrived earlier, smoking in his car. He must have seen us in his mirror because he put out his cigarette. "This shawl is for you. The wind is strong tonight. Don't catch a cold." Felix handed me a gift box, the latest Hermes. I hesitated to take it when a senior laughed. "He picked it out with much effort. You should accept it." "Thanks." Before I finished speaking, Felix's window was rudely knocked on. Jack stood outside with a scowl. "Changed cars?" he sneered. "Interested in cars now, huh? Drag race if you're man enough?" To me, this behavior was utterly childish. I was sure Felix wouldn't react. He was always calm and rational, never out of line. Just as I was about to decline on his behalf, the driver's window rolled all the way down. Felix actually turned to Jack with a smile. "Okay." When the engines roared and I saw both cars speed off, I snapped out of my shock. Have they lost it? I felt like killing Jack. I couldn't help but curse. Jack clearly wasn't interested in a fair race. He kept trying to bump Felix's car. On these treacherous mountain roads, a mistake could mean crashing over the guardrail. I'd seen Jack's reckless driving before, and Felix was stuck with him closely chasing. But just when I thought Felix would be trapped behind, at the next turn, he suddenly accelerated, making a sharp drift. The screech of brakes echoed through the air. Even Jack, a daredevil, didn't dare overtake. "You're crazy!" Jack shouted. Seeing victory at hand, Jack fell way behind, cursing loudly. It was a close call. Had Jack not braked in time, Felix would have been gambling with death. I'd never seen his calm and composed side be this wild. Next to him, Jack looked insignificant. I stood there trembling, hearing a senior's voice. "He's always been a bit crazy." He paused, his smile fading a little. "But being crazy for what he wants to protect, well, that's worth it. I just hope the one he wants to protect will know." Jack lost. He got out of his car with a dark face, while I was already grabbing Felix's hand, tears welling up. "See, I'm fine." Felix looked at me gently, his long fingers touching my nose. "Stop crying. Your makeup will smudge." A flash of memory hit me. In my freshman year, a senior sister in the student council always bullied me. Once, she deliberately stalled me from getting a signature. I was near tears, standing there while she chatted and laughed on the phone. At some point, Felix arrived. He looked upset, his dark eyes cold. The senior sister was visibly startled, hurriedly getting back to work. I stood there with my head down, not in the mood to greet him, and it felt like he just quietly watched me. "Merry Christmas," he suddenly spoke. "Thanks." Before the senior could finish her words, Felix handed me a gift. "Linda, remember to open it tonight." That moment stayed with me for a long time. He seemed indifferent, even his voice bland, yet it conveyed such warmth. I thought maybe it was a gift for all student council members. Later, I saw a notice on the school bulletin board that the senior sister was unanimously voted out for misconduct. Clutching Felix's arm like an accessory, I followed him into the private room. After what happened, I was truly scared of losing him. I didn't want him away from me for a minute. Throughout the meal, I stayed close, and every time he spoke with someone else, he couldn't help but smile. The drag race had scared me more than him. My hands shook, and Felix, noticing, kept helping with the food. We were so in sync that he would serve any dish I glanced at. But the previous tension made me drink more water than eat. Midway through, I couldn't hold it and needed the restroom. "I'm going to the restroom," I said, getting up. As I left, I heard a senior sister's voice. "Your junior is really cute." Felix seemed to chuckle. "Thanks, she's always been cute." My face turned red. I couldn't help blushing when facing Felix. Quickly, I closed the door and ran, face covered. I turned on the faucet and washed my arms with cold water. Felix's image from earlier popped into my head. His sharp and handsome profile, his Adam's apple moving slightly when he spoke. When he put the drumstick in my bowl, he gently asked, "Want anything else?" Even while talking to others, he'd continue to serve me food and remind me, "Careful, it's hot." In that moment, I was already thinking about what we'd name our kids in the future. As I turned around, daydreaming with my head down, I suddenly bumped into a hard chest. A warm hand grabbed my wrist, steadying me before slowly letting go. It was Jack. "Can you give me a reason?" His fingers tightened, then loosened. Why did things change between us? I wanted to laugh. Yeah, there was a time when I wanted to ask the same question. "Jack, let me ask you something." I looked at him. "Back at that concert in the schoolyard, when you asked for my contact info, was it because I looked like someone else?" His eyes flickered. "Okay, I already know the answer." I turned to leave, but he blocked me. "I admit it. At first, I approached you because you looked like someone I liked since childhood. But later, I genuinely fell for you because of who you are. Linda, believe me, I know my feelings now. I just like you. Only you." I lowered my eyes and laughed. Jack, if something starts with a mistake, it shouldn't continue. I once thought I saw sunshine and light brought by you. Little did I know that light was cheap and common. Jack would never know that on the day of the accident, I was so happy to have a hand-woven scarf for him. If the accident hadn't happened, I should have put that scarf around his neck myself. I walked out of the bathroom alone. Jack didn't follow. Surprisingly, Felix was waiting outside for me. We didn't mention what happened earlier, he didn't ask, and I didn't say, but our hands quietly intertwined, feeling the warmth of each other's palms. So, naturally, we were together, without formal confessions or promises, already sure of each other's hearts. I suddenly wanted to ask him a question. Felix, when did you start liking me? He looked ahead, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. A long time ago, I noticed you were a strong and persistent girl. Even when you were the last one on duty, you checked everything carefully before leaving. It seemed like every time I was on duty, I'd see him on my way home. I had to admit, knowing he was behind me made the dark path not so scary. Too bad I never noticed before and always thought it was just a coincidence. I paused and then slowly asked, but what if I always had only Jack by my side? Then I'd always be behind you, waiting for you to notice my love, waiting for you to be sure of your feelings. He would never pressure me. He'd take 99 steps, waiting for me to turn around so he could hold me without hesitation. In the second half of the party, we played many games, and Felix and I teamed up perfectly. Don't talk like that in front of Linda, Felix laughed and scolded. Protecting your girlfriend already, huh? Everyone started teasing. It's getting late. I'll take Linda back first. You guys can keep playing. Just put it all on my tab. Felix had a card here, loaded with enough money to cover my living expenses for a year. Everyone cheered, their fatigue dissipating, calling for more drinks. He grinned, tossed them the card, and amidst explosive cheers, pulled me out the door. In the underground parking lot, Felix couldn't help but press me against the wall. Linda, my girlfriend! His Adam's apple bobbed fiercely, his beautiful eyes shining in the dim light. As we got closer, my breathing quickened. Felix, my boyfriend. As soon as those words left my mouth, he kissed me as if he'd lost control. His hand cupped the back of my head, pressing me against the wall, hugging me tight. The kiss was deep and lingering. It wasn't until we heard the sound of cars in the distance that he reluctantly let go. Girlfriend, his voice was raspy. From now on, you're mine. I buried my head in his chest. Linda belongs to Felix now. Just under my ear was his heart, beating loudly. I could hear his confession, clear and unending. I'm yours too. Everything of mine is yours. I love you, Linda. That night, the campus forum was bustling again. The headline was, I got a girlfriend, online giveaway time. It was then I found out Felix was the forum admin. No wonder all the negative remarks about me disappeared so quickly. I used to think it was a system glitch. The excitement lasted for days. Meanwhile, I was walking through campus, looking at my phone, when someone suddenly appeared from the side. Linda, you have no shame, Nina spat, dark circles prominent under her eyes. If I hadn't left Jack, you'd never have had a chance. Must feel good ditching Jack for Felix. I continued walking, ignoring her tirade, but she persisted. Jack was devoted to me. He gave me all his money, learned basketball because I loved basketball stars, and picked up everything I was into during middle school. When I was upset, he'd talk to me all night and even go out of his way to bring me food. She went on about catching him visiting her social media late at night. Just like before, she was trying to provoke me. I simply replied, "Oh." Stopping in my tracks, I turned to her. Nina, it's not Jack you care about. You enjoy the attention he gives you. She looked taken aback, momentarily speechless. It's sad, really. One of you is lost in a fantasy world, refusing to step out, while the other craves constant admiration. But neither of you should trample on someone else's genuine feelings. Nina stood there, at a loss for words. Just then, I received a message from a friend on Instagram inviting me to dinner. Smiling, I said, I'm done here. I'm off to meet my boyfriend. Little did I know, fate had other plans. As Felix and I strolled down the street after a delightful hot pot dinner, the evening breeze was gentle, and the moonlight cast a soft glow. Everything in his eyes was bright and clear. Unfortunately, we crossed paths with Jack and Nina, both looking less than pleased. "I never thought you'd choose him," Jack murmured sadly. "What's so special about him? I've been pursuing you for so long." "Jack, do you understand the difference between us?" Felix addressed him directly for the first time. "You don't truly know her. You're in love with an image of her. With me, she can be herself, flaws and all, and I'll protect her from anything." Suddenly, a blinding light flashed, accompanied by the screech of brakes. The scene eerily mirrored the accident from my past. Panicked shouts, a driver's terrified expression, dust swirling in the air. "Linda, watch out!" Both Jack and Felix pushed me aside just in time. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. I fainted from shock. The two of them had minor scratches, but Nina suffered 3 broken ribs. Fortunately, no vital organs were affected. The antiseptic scent of the hospital stirred me awake. Opening my eyes slightly, I saw Jack holding a fruit basket while Felix sat nearby, carefully peeling an apple. "I concede. You win," Jack said softly, his usual bravado gone. "Last night, I tried to protect Linda, but you risked yourself entirely. People think I'm reckless, Felix, but you're the real madman." Felix focused on the apple. "She'll wake up soon. Stay and have something to eat with us," he suggested gently. "No, she probably doesn't want to see me. I'm truly sorry for all the pain I've caused her." Jack set the fruit basket down and headed for the door. Pausing, he gave a bitter smile. "I know money isn't an issue for you, Felix, but I covered the hospital bills this time. Beyond that, I don't know what else I can do for her. Though I wasn't injured, they insisted I stay in the hospital for a week. Felix remained by my side throughout, and many classmates visited to check on me. The day before my discharge, there was a fireworks display by the river, which I sadly missed. Feeling disappointed, I vented my frustration. Felix, ever patient, gently ruffled my hair. "Don't worry, Linda. You'll experience everything you want." On the evening of my release, he announced he was taking me somewhere special. He had switched to a different car, more spacious, filled with flowers and stuffed animals, treating me like someone cherished. He drove me to the riverbank, where his friends and my roommates were gathered around a bonfire, preparing a barbecue. They waved enthusiastically as we arrived. As I walked toward them, Felix called out, "Linda." Turning around, I was greeted by a breathtaking sight. Massive fireworks bursting overhead like countless lanterns, transforming into cascades of colorful blossoms that illuminated the night sky. Across the river, onlookers gasped in awe. I covered my mouth, overwhelmed. "Linda, these fireworks are all for you," Felix said, approaching me under the glowing sky. He embraced me tightly. "And I'm yours. Only yours." Back in our freshman year on Christmas Eve, Felix had given me a gift, a ring engraved with an L. Instead of wearing it, I had placed it on display, admiring it as a token from the esteemed student body president. It wasn't until we became a couple that I revisited it. By then, that apple, well, it was indescribable. "Could you have hidden it any less obviously?" Felix teased, covering his face. I was just shy. How did my respectable boyfriend turn into such a clingy guy? I retorted playfully. We started dating in our sophomore year and tied the knot upon graduation. When I became pregnant, I would playfully punch Felix's shoulder as he helped me with my thesis. Felix cheerfully endured my antics. Eventually, under his attentive care, our son was born. We named him Tim. "With our genes, he's bound to be exceptional," Felix mused. I pondered and agreed. That's probably true. As Tim grew, it became clear he was just like his father, reserved and introspective. He harbored secret crushes, but never found the courage to approach the girls he liked. He'd even hide behind us when he saw them, cheeks flushed, avoiding eye contact. I glanced at Felix, speechless. "He's exactly like you." Felix smirked. "I'm a bit better. At least I orchestrated being on the same projects as you." "You schemer," I exclaimed, laughing. "So it wasn't a coincidence. You planned it all along." In a previous life, I had perished in a car accident, and Felix had recklessly raced afterward in despair. The mole on his right thumb symbolized someone he loved deeply. Coincidentally, I had a mole on my left thumb, signifying I was deeply loved by someone. That person emerged from the darkest winters, living for love. While flowers may bloom for a season, love endures for a lifetime. May everyone find their perfect match.